Coming up next on the Union Label will be a conversation with J.W. Cleary, President of the Paducah-McCracken County branch of the NAACP and a member of the United Steelworkers of America. Welcome back. I'm Barry Craig. What has the union meant to you personally and to the country in general?
Barry, of course, I'm in my 50s now, and I can remember that going to the picnics of the plant in Calvert City for years back when it was, I guess it was called Erico Alloys, and of course my daddy was the first African-American hired at Erico at that time. And
his name?
Joe Robert Cleary. And it was really amazing. Through the years, we learned what the labor union really meant, especially being African-American. It was like Dad had an opportunity, and of course, we're talking about several years ago, and it wasn't many opportunities for African-Americans. And the labor union, it gave people a chance. And when I say African-Americans, not only did the labor union give African-Americans a chance, it gave the everyday working men a chance. Because everybody didn't have college degrees and doctors and lawyers and this type of thing. But the labor union gave people as a whole, the everyday people, a chance to make the kind of money that they're making today. That's the reason why that I feel like sometimes it's hard for me to understand how the percentage of members of the labor union has gone down over the years, because we know for a fact that the labor union made a difference in this country for us being able to for people to make decent wages. And to me, that's where the young folks fall short of the knowledge, because of the fact that they wouldn't be making what they're making today if it wasn't for the labor union. And when I say because of the fact that the way it appears that everybody is always taking the attitude of trying to get off as cheap as they can, but you had the labor union to say, hey, look here, if that man or that woman do an honest day's work, they should get the kind of wages that anybody else won't or have. And you take the attitude that the question is asked sometimes, what do you want out of life? I want the fact that I want to be able to raise my family. I want a nice house. I want a nice car. But it's really amazing that the fact that we got young folks out here working today for minimum wage, and you wonder how in the heck do they survive? So the labor union, it just means so much to African Americans. Even when I came a member of the labor union at SKW, I mean, it was like, gosh.
Was that the UAW?
At that was UAW, it sure was. Yeah. And it just makes you feel good that you can compare up with other people in the community of making the kind of money that you're making. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know, labor has been in my family all my life, because of the fact that mainly when I got a little older, I realized how important that the labor union was. Mm-hmm. It just gives the everyday people a chance to say, hey, mm-hmm. I can make enough money by working with this labor union in order to provide what I wanted to for his family and have a nice house and have a nice car in my family.
So how long were you with SKW?
I was only there about 5 or 6 years, and
then you went to the atomic plant.
Right. I wound up going to USEC. That's what it's called now. Of course, it's called Union Carbide.
Oh, when I was a kid, it was Union Carbide. Yeah.
But I seen firsthand, even women ought to kiss the ground that the labor union stands on, because of the fact that even the women during the time, they was not getting a fair share. But I seen at the time when I came in that it was women hired because of the fact that they were women. because of the fact that the federal government said you got to have women employed as well as African Americans, and so it really gave us a chance to match up, and it also gave us a chance to be able to make the same amount of money as the man right next door or right next to you make, because you know as well as I know, a lot of times you might make one salary, but somebody else made another salary. But it wasn't with the labor union. It wasn't no ifs, ands, and buts.
Mm-hmm. Let me read you a couple of quotes from Martin Luther King, December the 11th, 1961, speaking to the AFL-CIO. By raising the living standards of millions, labor miraculously created a market for industry and lifted the whole nation to undreamed of levels of production. Those who attack labor forget these simple truths, but history remembers them. That is why Negroes support labor's demands and fight laws which curb labor. That is why the labor hater and labor baiter is virtually always a twin-headed creature spewing anti-Negro epithets from one mouth and anti-labor propaganda from the other mouth. The other quote, our needs are identical with labor's needs: decent wages, fair working conditions, livable housing, old age security, health and welfare measures, conditions in which families can grow, have education for their children, and respect in the community.
Beautiful.
Very much what you were saying.
Right. Well, and then see, of course, we got to give credit to Philip A. Randolph, because of the fact that it might have started out just by being a steward or whatever on the trains, but then, of course, he pushed the fact that we were in this thing together. In other words, white American, black American, we got to work together. And even that's one of my philosophies even today. It's no way that a community could go up without both sides going up. If you got one side down and the other side up, then you won't be able to reach your potential. But if both sides are going up at the same time, then you can make a difference. And that was the argument that Philip A. would push. And then it realized that the white labor unions at that time, it was majority white even at that time, that we need each other, and they realized that also. And so thank God that they took the attitude that we got to work together. Mm-hmm.
Have you held any offices in your local?
I have not. Mainly why I have not, and I say I have not, I have to a certain extent. I'm more or less the representative for the USEC or the UAW for as when it comes to the area council, which the area council consists of all your labor unions. But mainly the reason why that I have not is because of the fact that, of course, I think that labor and the NAACP go hand in hand because of the fact that what the NAACP does, it gives also African Americans a chance to participate on a level playing field, because racism is still alive even today, whether it be in labor, housing, or whatever it might be. So my work has been mostly with dealing with the African Americans with the NAACP, just trying to match up. But I never will forget what W.C. Young would always say. Of course, he was African American, and the labor thought the world of him. I mean, he was nationally known, W.C. was, but he would always take the philosophy that he had his labor card along with his NAACP card. And that was my philosophy also, that labor and NAACP go hand in hand.
I've heard him say that, indeed. Now, it was Carbide when you went to work out there,
right?
I guess. That was the old Oil, Chemical, and Atomic Workers Union. And since then, you all have become part of the United Steelworkers.
Mainly because of that is the fact that the low in numbers. In other words, the organization took the attitude that we got to bind together in order to have a bigger voice.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What do you think are the most important qualities for a labor leader at any level?
I think the biggest thing, even in general, people day to day, is take the attitude that that if I can help somebody along the way, then my living won't be in vain. I never will forget that song. But that's basically a good labor union, that they care to the point of whereas it's not about self, it's about doing the right thing, because so many people if it's not somebody watching them, they will tend to do whatever they want to, and that's where things like the labor union and the NAACP comes about. Whereas they can maybe if something's wrong, they will step in and say, hey, this is not fair and this is not right. And that's what the labor union, it's always, when you speak of labor, you think of bargaining. In other words, what it amounts to is people sitting down at the table, company and management, along with the labor union sitting down trying to come up with something that everybody can live with. Because you take money people, they are people that owns these companies, they want to make as much money as they can, but the labor union is there to say that, hey, we want our part, and sure, if you make money, we want to be able to make money also.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Again, going back to the leadership idea, I've talked to a number of labor leaders down through the years, and the one thing that really distresses them is that not that many people participate in union affairs. Your monthly union meeting, for example, very lightly attended. Any ideas how labor leaders could increase participation in the day-to-day or month-to-month union activities?
Well, see, people sometimes on the outside looking in take the attitude that the labor union is not doing anything, but they don't realize that the calls and the type of situations, just even being a steward on your job when something is not right. Because what tends to happen is if somebody can get by with something, then they will do it. That's the bad part about it. In other words, everybody don't take the attitude of trying to do the right thing. But the labor union, I don't really know what would be the goal with so many people that sit on the sideline waiting for somebody else to do what they can, or they just take for granted that the labor union is going to stand up for them. It's kind of like you don't hear from these people until they get in trouble, and that's the sad part about it. We really need people to participate, and I'm not going to say that I'm the best participation in the world either. In other words, we tend to take for granted that everything's going to be okay. But when it happens in your household, when something's wrong or something in your situation, then everybody's always there crying on the shoulders of the labor union. And I don't know, the labor union just means so much, and even to the point of whereas even the white collar workers, the thing even at our workplaces, a lot of times it's a percentage of what they make over what the labor union. The more the labor union people or union people make, the more the company people are going to make.
I've heard numerous company people say that. Exactly.
And one of the biggest situations, even in our community, I never will forget, Lourdes Hospital gets a negative remark sometimes about the fact that when they tried to go union. But really, it was an asset to the people at the other hospital, at Western Baptist. In other words, because of the fact that Western Baptist said, hey, look here, we're going to have to clean our house up because we don't want this type situation to happen at our hospital. So the Lourdes Hospital people, it was some of them that lost their jobs and this type of thing. But really, we ought to kiss the ground they walk on, in a way of speaking, because they really made it better for the medical field, or the regular everyday workers, for as the nurses and also the custodians that work in the hospitals. In other words, the people that sometimes don't get the best end of the stick.
Mm-hmm. So when unions benefit, everybody benefits.
That's exactly right. And that's the part that our young folks, we got to continue to stress with them, that when labor people, when you do good in your labor union, then everybody actually benefits from it.
Mm-hmm. Another thing too, in talking to some labor leaders from some of the plants at Calvert City, a young woman gets hired at a plant, and this person has been working at a minimum wage job, few benefits, bad vacations. They go to work at a plant. The plant personnel director, human resources director, says, okay, you're going to be making this an hour, and you've got these benefits, and you've got this vacation, and this is fantastic. And he said, they told me that the union needs to do a better job of explaining to these young workers that it's the union that got them that the company didn't do this out of the goodness of its heart. It was union-won contracts. Do you see that in plant, when young people are hired at your plant? I mean, do they think, well, look, the company's given us all this stuff. are you all able to educate and say, well, hang on a minute, it was the union that won you those wages, those benefits, and those vacations?
This is something that we talk about all the time. In fact, I remember even you said that you knew it was a problem because of the fact that was the reason why that you started labor union classes. We wish that when a person would come in, that they would part of their schooling, just like it is with the company. You know, you go through all this schooling trying to get ready to work for this company. But we wish that the labor union part of it or some labor union training was involved. We wish that that would happen at a lot of our companies. But we know that it doesn't because the company don't care. They don't want to educate the people. But it's up to our labor union to do it. In other words, but a lot of times because of what you said a while ago, the lack of participation, then therefore they don't really hear the things that they really need to know about the labor union. A lot of time when we go to the union meetings, that's because of the fact the people that are there is kind of like preaching to the choir, because of the fact that they already know how important that the labor union is. They know what the labor union has done. They know what the labor union has meant to their family because of the fact that they provided a good living for their family, you know.
In those classes that I taught you're referring to, they're very interesting classes. They were a mix of public employee, craft unionists, as well as industrial unionists. And some of the craft union folks told me that part of their apprenticeship program was the history of their union. So if you're going through a carpenter's apprenticeship program, the history of the union is part of that. I don't recall that industrial unionists, there's much of that. So you think that's something industrial unions like the steel workers ought to do, is try to of course, again, it's not an apprenticeship program with an industrial union, but it seemed to me that is something that industrial unions really ought to maybe do more of.
I agree with you to 100%, Barry. In fact, I wish all the labor union leaders would take the same attitude, that the fact that this is a must. In other words, when they get down at the table of bargaining, that they would take the attitude that even talking to the company, that we got to have some training or at least be able to show the history to these people coming in and let them know how much labor meant to them.
Well, and again, I've talked to union leaders, and I know you have too, is young people are not aware that many, many years ago, that, well, sometimes not that many years ago, that union organizers were beaten up, they were jailed, they were killed, that truly, the UAW, your dad's union, and you were in the UAW, they call us the heritage of struggle, and it's real. So how many young people who sign up with the steelworkers know about something like the Memorial Day Massacre of 1937, when the cops shot down these guys outside Chicago, men, women, and children, this sort of thing, that how much blood was shed for unions? I mean, do young people, are they just unaware of it, disinterested in it?
I agree with you. They just take the attitude that they didn't know they didn't know about it, you know, and you really can't blame them, but that's where we come in. We got to really push this because of the fact that we know for a fact that sometimes in this country you have to fight for what you want, because otherwise people will just run right over you. You know, we even see it in everyday life, that the fact that even in management, the management, just a good old boy never goes nowhere. The good old boy that don't never raise a little sand or raise a little cane just seem like they stay in the same place. But those people that seem like that they want to make a difference and take the attitude that this ain't right, and every now and then it's good to stand up for what you think's right, regardless whether the company thinks you're right or not.
Do you also see in the NAACP young African Americans who are unaware of what Martin Luther King, unaware of the civil rights struggle in the 60s? Is that ancient history to them too? That's
the reason why we've always said that the labor union goes hand in hand with the NAACP, is because of the fact that it's no different with the NACP. For as only time you hear from people a lot of times is when it's in their house or they get in trouble, and then they realize hopefully that the fact that how important it is. But what tends to happen is that once their situation is over with, you don't hear from them anymore. And that's the bad part about it, you know.
Our good friend Larry Sanderson has been on this program before. We've talked many times. I know you have too with Larry. He says that it all comes down to politics, that politics is not a dirty word, that politics is what makes this country go. Yet there are large numbers of union members, like large number of Americans across the board, who say, I don't want to vote or don't want to fool with it, doesn't make any difference. How do you, if a young trade unionist came up to you and said, well, it doesn't matter whether I vote or not, how do you deal with that?
I don't know. My philosophy, of course, is the fact that you don't have any say-so at all if you don't vote or don't participate. And you take somebody like Larry Sanderson. He solved, of course, we know what his history is in the union. But Larry Sanderson, he's the type of person that have solved even problems here in the city of Paducah of just doing the right thing. And that's what we've always took the attitude with the labor union, is the fact that they would take the attitude of let's just be fair. Let's treat everybody alike. Let's be equal. And so to me, that goes a long ways. So it's kind of like, whereas it's not a politic thing. Like you said, it's people that make the politics a nasty word. It's by favoritism and this type of thing. You know, don't be favored. Just do what you think is right, you know, and not necessarily sometimes what you think is right. Do what your people think is right, the right thing to do, you know.
But there's a real disconnect. We see it with students on campus here about that they don't vote. And it's funny, and you know, of course, both of us, we're in our 50s. I'm probably farther in my 50s than you are anyway. But the older you are, the more likely you are to vote. In your experience in unions, the people who participate the most, do they tend to be older?
That's correct. The fact, it makes you feel good that when young folks actually show an interest, that truly makes you feel good. I mean, in fact, it makes us older people just want to keep on going when young folks do act like that they do want to take an interest, because we know that our numbers are getting very few. And even the union people, you got a very faithful few out there that just keep trying to struggle along. Even in the area council union that me and you are affiliated with, is the fact that you got some of the older heads in there. They just they're there every meeting night, you know. And so when you see young folks come through that door, you say, well, what do I need to do to try to keep them involved and interest, you know? And they take the attitude, well, this is boring and this ain't nothing to do. Well, I would say to the audience out there that the fact that if you take that attitude, well, in other words, don't wait for let somebody to tell you what to do. Just stay right on in there and say, I'm gonna work right side by side to try to help you make a difference, because it truly has made a difference in this country. Even minimum wage, the labor union has made a difference.
Public education.
Right, there you go. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's a subject that to me is real easy to talk about, because I know in my heart what labor union has done, because we know that people won't do what they should do all the time.
Getting back to the area council recently, Jeff Wiggins, who is our very good council president, looked around and said, fellas, I'm one of the youngest ones here, and I'm 47. And you look, and you're absolutely right. It's the same folks, and you're absolutely right. When a young person runs through the door, you want to just grab them and say, stay around a while. And that's tough, getting young people involved in the NAACP and unions. Any secret to that you've found? How do you get young people personally? What is your secret to that?
I don't really know exactly. But the same philosophy or the same trend goes in even in our churches. I take the attitude that what we tend to try to do is give that person a job. I won't forget, just this past November, we had our annual Freedom Fund banquet with the NAACP. The whole program was designed about having young folks involved. In other words, even on the program, the people that's talking, in other words, young folks, letting them know that, hey, look here, we just need your help. And it really turned out good. So, but all the time, but you got older people sometimes take the attitude that they don't want to give it up. In other words, they had been doing this for several years, and we want the older people to back off if they can, but still watch over us to make sure that the work is carried out. But I don't know. I just, the only thing I can say is that we try to keep them busy, but we know that it ain't enough jobs in there probably to keep them busy, because of the fact that a lot of times, being a labor union, a lot of times you get phones all times of the night and during the day and whatever. So it's a lot of work done within the labor union that a lot of time people don't see publicly.
And you're right in that we as a society don't do things as groups anymore. There's a wonderful book, if you get a chance to read, the book is called Bowling Alone, and it's about American society, that we don't go to church like we used to. We don't go to union meetings like we used to. We don't go to club meetings like we used to. We stay at home and get on our computer, and it's very individualized. And this is a real breakdown of a social fabric, that we do things as a community. So it's tough. It's tough across the board, and I haven't met a labor leader yet who knew the magic to getting people to participate, because if they did, they would do it. But that is really tough across the board. And you're right. You just gotta keep plugging away with it. How long have you been president of the Paducah branch?
I've been president going on 18 years now, which is unreal in a way. Years ago, of course, Curly Brown was president over 30 years. It's one of those jobs, just like Jeff Wiggins, head of our labor union. It's one of those jobs that don't really nobody, in a way of speaking, want. It makes you feel good when somebody wants to challenge you. And to me, in the NACP, it ain't a challenge. If it's a person that I think that wants to help make a difference and got their mind and heart in the right perspective, then they don't even have to run against me. I will step to the side and assist them. And I know that's the way Jeff feels.
He does.
Jeff feels the same way. A lot of times, the only reason why that we're reelected here every year is because of the fact that nobody wants to take the time and energy. Because these programs that happen, a lot of times, they don't happen by themselves. Even the Labor Day Parade, you'd be surprised all the hours that people put in to make this thing come about. And what tends to happen, you're talking about maybe 3 or 4 people that actually do most of the work.
And Jeff, of course, has issued a call repeatedly. We need younger blood in here.
Exactly.
That the committee, it's the stalwarts. And
Exactly.
it's a lot of the same people who come to the council every month are the ones who carry the Labor Day forward. And it's tough finding someone to pass the torch to.
Exactly.
And you're absolutely right. It's across the board. We're almost out of time. Any final thoughts in about 30 seconds?
Well, I can't believe that we're out of time, but
it always goes fast like this.
It really is. This is a subject that is dear to my heart, and I know exactly that the fact that the labor union means so much. And of course, I will say that the fact that if management or the owners of these companies, but we're in a world that whereas it just seems like that no one's ever satisfied. They keep wanting more. So, and of course, the labor union takes the attitude that if you make money, then we want to make money. We want to make our share. And when we come to the table of the bargaining table, it ain't a thing of taking anything. It's a thing of just getting what we feel like that it deserves to be ours, in a way of speaking.
We're out of time. Thank you for coming. Hope you can come back again soon.
Thanks.
I'm Barry Craig. Our guest today was J.W. Cleary. We'll see you next time.